Hi, my name is Mick Rodgers from Axial Benefits Group. We've heard from so many of you over this crazy time with your thoughts and your questions and your even some anxieties that we thought it would be helpful to get a small hand-selected group of experts to answer their frequently asked questions that they're hearing from their areas of expertise. Those areas of expertise, are from our perspective, the employee benefits, the retirement plans, employment law, HR policies, procedures, HR leadership, et cetera, maybe even some finance issues. If you're anything like us, our email is being overwhelmed with COVID response. I joke that my email looks like a Twitter feed right now with COVID response emails. So we're trying to figure out, we thought it would be helpful to do a different format from that, get these experts to actually answer these questions on video clips so that we could get that out and it could get a little bit above the normal email response. Today's guest is Laurie Glaude. Laurie is the founder of Aurora Business Solutions. Aurora specializes in human resource, leadership, and people development as a consulting firm. We found that Laurie's been a great resource for our clients over the last few years. We've been doing more and more work with her, and I think that you'll agree that she's a great knowledge base for these type of issues. So good morning, Laurie.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I really appreciate you coming on. I think some of these questions that we've been getting from our clients, I mean, we, have really started to come from our HR professionals. And candidly, I think that our HR professionals are stressed out. They're being overworked. They're deprived of resources in a normal time, never mind this time. What's the best advice that you're giving other HR professionals to try and help them stay calm, but more importantly, message a message of calm for their employee base during this crazy time?
Yeah, we are definitely stressed. This is unprecedented times, and it does fall on HR. HR is looked at as the people leader. And so I think keeping people calm starts with you being calm and thinking logically, thinking about your business, thinking about yourself and taking extra care. But make sure that you're listening to your employees' concerns without ensuing any panic. Be careful how you disseminate information. Like, I don't think it's a great idea to have COVID on the break room TVs 24/7. I think listening to what concerns they have, how it's impacting the business, and most importantly, what you're doing to mitigate. We have clients who are issuing masks and adding maintenance and changing shifts and moving to a 4-day work week, going to a remote arrangement. Communicate that. And as you have employees who are now disseminated all over, keep them engaged. So your messaging, whether it's weekly Zoom meetings, daily Zoom meetings, or text messaging, or vlogs, videos, pushing that out. I think that that's important to do. Rely upon your EAP. Everybody has an EAP. If you don't, connect with you and get one. But it's really important that you rely on your emotional resources too. And what will happen is your employees are panicking right now. This is a big deal, and they may be personally impacted. So they're coming from a source of emotion of fear. And sometimes we become the virtual punching bag. At the end of the day, keep in mind that it's not about you, the person, it's about the circumstances. And you may be the go-to person, and just be open-minded, saying, my employees are upset, they're concerned, they're panicked. What can I do to deliver information that's factual in a calm manner? And I always practice this. I'll tell you what I know, I'll tell you what I don't know, and I'll tell you what I know, but I can't tell you. And being transparent and honest is the best way for employees to remain as calm as possible. It is not the new norm. Or maybe it is the new norm, but it's not normal. So you just have to exercise a high level of not taking things personal, listening, relying on your resources, and looking at your organization from a lens of, we just need to keep our employees engaged.
What's your feeling on the amount of communication to keep this level of calm? Is there a time when it gets over communicated? Do you think it can be over communicated, or is just communication just, keep it coming?
I think keeping it coming, but keeping it coming with your culture in mind. So I get a little concerned when we start posting things right off of the internet. Make it in terms that employees can understand. I mean, there are some communication tools that have been published by the Department of Labor that has to be posted, so that you need to do, but have a conversation with your employees, and whether that's live or in a virtual meeting like this, but put it in terms that they can understand. But always with your communication, leave openness for questions, because they have questions, and they may be questions you can't answer, but I would still be open to that. And I don't think you can communicate enough. I just think you just have to be careful how you communicate. You don't want to instill panic.
Yeah, so the right communication is important. I agree. Let's expand a little bit on the component of the employee base, right? So we had this come up, and we weren't really sure how to sort of like advise them. But what are you telling employers that have somebody disclose that they have had a positive COVID test?
That is happening, and it is really difficult. I think from an HR professional lens, first and foremost, you have to maintain confidentiality. That doesn't go away. So protect the employee who has tested positive. And so let's talk about that employee, and then we'll talk about the rest of the employees. So that employee, follow the guidance that we're getting from the CDC, from the state, from the Department of Labor on quarantine with a positive test. So as an HR professional, help guide that employee through that process. They may not be sick, but they may be quarantined. And so get any information you can in their hands so that they can apply for unemployment benefits or assistance, but let them know that you're highly concerned about them. You're here to help them get through whatever they need to get through to secure their both physical safety and financial safety through the benefits that are available. Now for the workforce, and I have an appreciation that people will panic, but what you don't want is your whole entire organization becoming disruptive. So what I recommend is think about what you're doing to protect the safety of your employees. Socialize that. And it will happen, the word will get out that somebody's been tested positive. I would take each concern privately and address the concerns. Listen to what your employees are saying. How does it impact them? What are they worried about? Is it safe? You can't, obviously we don't know. This is so brand new. We can't say for certain that any environment is safe, but what you can do is reinforce, these are the things that we're doing to keep you safe. Don't let it become a gossip.
Right.
And
get ahead of it.
Yeah, I mean, someday at some point you're going to be re-entering that employee back to the workplace, so you want to think about that too. But just continue to socialize what you're doing to keep your organization safe.
Right, and we're going to talk about sort of thinking about coming back after this quarantine issue as well. But So I guess the last question that we have, sort of, which is sort of like an acute, right? I mean, it's happening now. Is a lot of HR. I'm almost thinking about it as HR on the fly, right? I mean, some of these policies and procedures that are needing to change almost daily, or with the governor's orders, et cetera. How are you advising your clients, your HR professionals, on what decision? Well, so first of what decisions to sort of think about, how to make those decisions, and then really importantly, how to start getting those HR policies that are changing out to a remote base.
Remote being the largest swing that I've seen. So the first thing I think you have to do is, as you develop your policy, think the end in mind. So we're not going to be in this COVID crisis forever. We do need to think about getting our businesses back to normal. We don't have any guidance to fall on any past histories and things like that. So let's take remote workers, since that's the biggest one. Start thinking about what has to happen for that employee to work successfully in a temporary situation. And so as you frame your policy, keep it in terms of this is a temporary flexible work arrangement that we have set up, and think about all of the pieces that go with it, whether it's how do you provide high-speed internet for your employees if they don't have it, or the tools that they need to be able to work from home, and then what those boundaries are around that when they're dealing with your clients or your customers. But then think about what is that going to look like getting them back? So as you form the policy, talk about this is temporary, this is our part of our pandemic response plan. It all should fit together. And then communicate that in terms that are clear, that are concise, whether it's via a WebEx like this, or if it's in a memo. I think you can't communicate it enough. I'm not a big fan of just sending out a memo saying, here's our new policy. I like socializing it. And so that everybody sees that you are trying as an organization to keep the business moving. There's been a lot of discussion about essential versus non-essential and how all of that's working. So talk about that. Talk about why you're doing this and how long you anticipate it and when it might change. And then revisit that frequently. When you create a standard for your business, if you don't socialize it regularly, it gets forgotten and then it doesn't work for you. So socialize your standards regularly, have scheduled check-ins. And then again, listen to your employees. You've got employees who are working remote that now have two jobs, your job, and they may be homeschooling their children. There may be other issues happening there.
Right.
So you have to be open, but start with the end first as you begin to write that policy, because we're in a transition period right here. We're not in permanent state yet.
Right. Great advice. So, I hope this is a true statement that we're not going to be in this COVID crisis forever, right? I hope so. That we see the end. I hope that we see somewhat of the end being near, right? So let's think past this for a minute and opine on, after this crisis, we're going to have to get these employees all back to the normal work environment, right? Whatever that is. What's your sort of thinking on that? Maybe best advice to start the HR professionals thinking about how we're going to integrate all these people back.
Mm-hmm. So I think, as I said earlier, you start with the end in mind. So everything that you do today, you need to think under the umbrella that we are still going to be in a workforce shortage on the other side of this. The population hasn't improved so greatly that we're not going to have a war on talent. So you want your people to come back. So what you do today, keeping them engaged, communicating,
of course,
high levels, high touch points via social distancing touch points, but high touch points. And then as you bring them back, think about those impacts. So you may have a sense of fear, whenever that may be. It could be a month, 2 months, 6 months. There may be a sense of fear and anxiety coming back to work because I've worked from home for so long, or the circumstances have changed, or I'm in a heavily dense populated workspace. So you want to think about what will it look like when they come back? How are you going to address that anxiety and fear of employees who've been gone? And then the other thing is the new human impacts. You can't walk down the street, and if there's somebody clearly on the other side, they're not looking at you. So we've created this, social distancing has created this emotional disconnection between humans. So anticipate, how are you going to get that back in your workplace? What types of communication strategies are you going to have?
Right.
What type of tolerance are you going to have for starting a new, getting into your new routine? If you think that your employees are going to come in turnkey and day one everything's back to normal, I think you'll be disappointed. So I think you have to think that transition ramp up time to get new normal back, and work with your leaders and describing what that culture is going to look like when everybody's back to work, and be mindful and thoughtful and planful how you achieve that through communication, delivery of policy, expectations, your work environment. I have a heightened sense of concern that if you are in one of these work environments that's all open, that might be difficult. So you may want to think about, all right, how are we going to address our workspace if
Physical
it's not
space,
conducive?
right?
And then have some conversations with your employees coming back. The biggest thing that you can do is listen to their concerns. You may not be able to solve them or agree with them, but you can invest the time in listening, and that will help drive your cultural changes that you need to make.
Wow, that's great. Great thoughts on that. I think that there's so many intangible, it's not going to be automatic. We're not going to flip the switch and go back to a normal. Who knows what the new normal will be? I think that this crisis will have after effects for years to come on the way that we do business. And I think that that's really important that we have folks like you to sort of be able to tap. And I think that there's a whole nother session around what folks should be thinking about, specific items to sort of start to look at to get back to work. So I really appreciate your time this morning. We'll make sure that we get your contact information out, included, so that folks can reach out direct. But I really appreciate your time. And for everyone else, please be safe. It's the #1 priority right now. And keep an eye open for other regular updates from experts like Laurie, and maybe Laurie herself as a part of this series. So thank you very much.